Welcome back to another episode of Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services, Cottonwood Parks and Recreation, and Gettles High Desert Mechanical. I'm your host, Philip Catafamo. We have got a great show in store for you this week. Later in the program, we'll be joined by Mingus Union boys basketball coach Dave Beery. He'll come on to the show to break down his intriguing sophomore class and talk about the team's first game of the season against ALA Queen Creek on November 26th. We'll then be joined by Base's Flagstaff boys soccer coach Marty Heilman. He'll return to the show to speak about his origins in teaching, who he looks to for inspiration, and what the plan is for the offseason. But on the other side of this break, we'll be joined by Prescott High School boys basketball coach Travis Stedman to talk about the start of the season, how he plans to continue developing the JV level, and discuss the team's first game of the season later this month. All of that and a whole lot more coming up right here on Off the Bench. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Starting in the late 1920s, Grandpa Gettle and his brothers laid the groundwork for what would become a family legacy. Almost 100 years and 100 patents later, Gettle's High Desert Mechanical continues to raise the bar of quality heating, cooling, and plumbing products and services in the Verde Valley.
Call Gettle's High Desert Mechanical Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing at 567-2200 or online at GettlesHDM.com, providing solutions for your comfort. Don't settle. Get Gettles.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I'm joined now by Prescott High School boys basketball coach Travis Stedman. Coach Stedman, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Phil, thanks for having me. It's absolutely my pleasure.
Well, happy to have you, Coach.
Yeah, we honestly, I think I'm probably going to have more fun in this than you are. So the next few minutes will be outstanding. I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, you got a lot to talk about. We talked a little bit before we started, and I know that you guys have had a very interesting offseason, but an offseason with interest that's good. A lot of new kids coming to the program, which we'll talk about. But, Coach, last season, the Badgers were able to finish 10-6 overall. They did earn a playoff spot against Coconino High School. Just in general, Coach, how did the season go, and how did that game against Coco fare?
You know, honestly, the season itself, once it got going, I think the hardest part of the entire year was just waiting out to figure out whether we were going to play or not play. Right. But once the gates opened and we were able to do stuff, man, it was one of those years I really cherished. I had a senior the other week, about a week ago, asked me, he goes, "Hey, what's some of the best and favorite teams you've ever coached?" And it was hard for me not to say last year. We had a lot of great personalities. We had some absolute good talent, that kind of thing too. But the year itself was great. It was a really good foundational building block for the program and for the school itself. And heading into the end of the year, making the playoffs, going on the road to play Coconino. Now, granted, obviously it didn't go our way, and we had some pretty untimely injuries during that game. Jonas Carmen rolled his ankle with about 2.5 minutes into the first quarter, and Milap Owens rolled his ankle, and I think with 28 seconds left in the first half. And so, we were pretty banged up, but ultimately we lost to a team who eventually went on to, play against St. Mary's and had a really, really good run for from their sake, and a really good basketball team. So kudos to them, and they're going to be pretty good coming back too. So.
Yeah, we'll get an opportunity to speak with Mike Moran on the show a little bit later this month, just to very much kind of preview that Coconino game. A lot of talent within the 4A this season. But, Coach, talking about some of those players, you mentioned Milap Owens, your second leading scorer, 15.1 points per game. He was a senior last year. He's graduated along with 4 other players. What can you say to that senior class, Coach?
The ones coming in, honestly, they are the ones that left I have this mantra that I'm not hey, we need to replace these guys, because you're never going to replace Milap Owens. I mean, you'd love to have a Milap Owens 2.0, but those kids just typically don't exist and they don't come through your program very often. And we're just blessed to have those guys. But in all honesty, it's one of those things that, they were a pleasure to be around. He was an outstanding leader. I mean, if you knew him when he was a freshman, I caught him when he was a sophomore, but if you knew him when he was a 14, 15-year-old kid, to the point where he became an 18-year-old kid, I mean, we're talking night and day, complete difference and growth in a human being like Milap. You just don't see it. And he himself made a huge effort to make sure the program was better when he left than when he got there. And same with guys like Jacob Brown, Tucker Koenig. That senior class was one for the ages, that kind of thing. Zach Regalado, who I got absolutely no minutes last year when it came to the year, and he couldn't have been a happier human being just being part of it. So that's just kind of the culture that they've created. And, ultimately that's really helping us out moving into this year for sure.
Coach, as somebody who did play the bench a lot in high school basketball, I got real good at giving people high fives. So I kind of understand the sort of team morale that comes with guys who don't necessarily play every week or don't get, there were a lot of times where I didn't get to play until we were up by about 20, 25 points. And then they start chipping away because, you miss a couple shots. But you need those guys off the bench who aren't necessarily, your leading scorers. You need those guys who are the morale boosters. It's nice to hear that particular player takes that role in stride because it takes a lot of pressure off the team for kids. Everybody wants to play, but not everybody can play. There's only 5 spots there's only 5 players on the floor at one time. And not everybody gets an opportunity to play, but it's great. As somebody who came off the bench, I understand the role that a lot of those guys have to play.
Yeah, you can only fill 160 minutes per game. I mean, it's just mathematically, that's how it works out. And most teams carry 12. And honestly, if you haven't read it, Phil, do yourself a favor, pick up Mark Titus's book. It's called Don't Put Me In, Coach. And it's outstanding. It's hilarious. If you were one of the bench dwellers, he was a manager for Ohio State in the early 2000s. And it's one of the most hilarious things. It's basically just tales from the end of the bench, and it's tremendous. But we love those guys. Like, those are the guys that last year, Parker Jex was one of those guys for us. He's obviously going to be a senior this year, but right. You need that. What I like to, I stole it from other people, and you pretty much steal from everybody when it comes to basketball, but it's called Benergy. And so you need that bench energy. You need that. Like, remember those Monmouth teams from the early 2000s, mid 2000s, they're doing all the celebrations and stuff on the sidelines. We show our team clips of the Golden State Warriors when they hit shots. I mean, those are the things that help drive wins and help drive culture. And we love those guys.
Well, Coach, looking forward to some of the guys who will probably be on the floor a little bit more, one of which being Jason Parent, who was your leading scorer last season, 17.9 points per game. He enters his senior year this year with a bunch of guys behind him. You're welcoming in a pretty solid senior class this year. Speaking more specifically about Jason, how do you plan to further his development as he enters his final year? If memory serves me correct, he was one of your freshmen who came in when you took over the program.
Yeah, definitely. So I've been witness to his growth, and honestly, as a coach, he's helped me grow too. He's a tremendous human being. Obviously a really, really, really good basketball player, and one of the best teammates I've ever coached at that has that ability, if that makes sense. And he's one of those kids that I just try not to get in his way. He just was one of those guys that he naturally grows. And I mean, he'd probably tell you something completely different because he's a super modest kid. But in all honesty, the growth that he's had has been self-inflicted. He's leaps and bounds better than when he was as a freshman. And he only has, he has a long ways to go before he even catches his peak. So we're just lucky to have him on our roster and lucky to be able to put him in games and help us out. So yeah, you'll see some fun Jason this year for sure.
Well, along with Jason Parent, of course, anyone else you're excited to get back this season, Coach?
Yeah, we like you said, we have a tremendous senior class. Jonas Carmen, 6'7" wing that we play, can really shoot the basketball. Again, has transformed himself into being a little more physical, going to the basket. Hopefully, going to be shooting some more free throws this year. Improving himself on the defensive side of the floor. Jake Hilton, who played spot minutes for us last year, and by the end of the year was in the full rotation. He was a sophomore. He'll be a junior this year. He's an all-conference wide receiver on our football team, so we won't have him for a while. But when he gets back, his athleticism and length and all that stuff is going to help us out a ton. And a kid that has progressed immensely since I saw him, Logan Jex, is going to hold a huge part of our program when it comes to that Benergy thing, coming off the bench, starting on occasion, doing his thing. His energy, his strength, his moxie is going to help us a ton. So,
again, we are speaking with Prescott High School boys basketball coach Travis Stedman. The Badgers will have their first game against Notre Dame Prep on November 23rd. Coach, getting back to the program itself, the JV team was able to accomplish a lot of games last season, beating a few region opponents as well as a bunch of out-of-region opponents, of course. Anyone you're seeing coming up this season, anyone who's going to be going from that JV team to the varsity, who's going to be contributing for you from those lower levels? And then just in general, how you feeling about the development of your lower level team?
Our lower level teams this year are going to be probably better than they have been in the past. Part of it is we have a lot of kids trying out this year. We have close to 70 kids that they're in the tryout situation. But specifically, Micah Bittner is a 6'5" post wing type kid that's going to come in and really help us out. We're really malleable as a team this year, and we're that because of guys like Micah Bittner who can come in and play a couple positions, pretty physical. Chris Pippi Brown is a kid that was one of the better players on the JV team who's going to have a really serious role in our varsity team, going back to that malleability that we have. And we have a couple of freshmen that are going to come in and hopefully make some waves for us too. So
let's jump into that offseason, Coach. We keep talking about that new group of, well, not necessarily a new group, but just how many kids came out to try out this season. How has the offseason been going just in general?
We've been really lucky. That incoming freshman class, they're really tight knit. We had 33, I believe, freshmen. I'd have to go back and double check that, but it was definitely more than 30 specific freshmen that tried out this year, which is maybe, if not a record, it's pretty darn close to a record. And the odd thing about it, and I say odd in the best sense, the odd thing about it is they're all like best friends. And so it's this weird, tight-knit group of kids that have a lot of success. They played some club basketball. They played club baseball since they were tots. And the thing is, they've just grown up together, and it's a really good group. And you mix that in with the kids that we've already had. It's going to be a nice future heading forward. I appreciate. So.
Yeah. And that's great. And it's always good when these guys come in with a little bit of that camaraderie already. Like you mentioned, you had a couple kids who already knew each other. They played basketball before. I mean, they're coming in with that chemistry. And when you've got a group of kids like that, you know it, you've seen it. When you've got a group of kids like that who are so close, they stay on in the program for 4 years. They stay there for a long time. They're there for the long term. But just in terms of the chemistry, it's probably a lot easier to build chemistry within the team if a lot of these guys know each other. And also, now that I'm saying that out loud, the potential also of cliques of guys who kind of gravitate towards just the 3 guys or maybe just the 4 guys. So, Coach, how do you kind of build that chemistry amongst your team just to go from that individual ideal to that team aspect?
Well, honestly, when it comes to culture is one of those things that gets thrown around a lot. It almost loses its meaning nowadays. But in reality, culture is what wins and loses games. It really is, because when you have a culture of winning, and you have a culture of positivity, and you have a culture of camaraderie and picking up the team and next best and move on to the next thing, it doesn't really, it matters. Obviously, we have good basketball players and great basketball players, but it covers up a lot of sin. And so we spent a lot of time developing that. And that was one of the things that I really took ownership of when I took over the program was, I don't want to be here for 6 weeks. I want to be here for 16, 70, whatever years, however long they're letting me hang out and give me keys to the gym. That's how I want to be. So it's one of those things that if I'm going to be here for this extended period of time, I want a program that people want to be part of. I want a program that is going to put butts in the stands and they're going to appreciate the product on the floor. And that teamwork, that, avoiding the clique thing and creating that culture of being part of something bigger than yourself that's honestly the biggest thing that we have moving forward. It's like, I mean, if I hand you my playbook's a 3-inch thick 3-ring binder. None of that matters. Like none of that matters. And everything that matters is just that culture portion of it. And then everything else is ancillary after that.
Coach, you mentioned it early on when we were talking about that senior class, how you don't necessarily like to get into the mindset of, okay, these guys I have to replace. But I'm curious, with such a new group of kids coming back, along with your usual returners, and you mentioned 70 kids coming out to try out. What is your mentality when it comes to filling out your team? I mean, I know you said you don't necessarily are trying to replace one kid with another kid because it's, like you said, it's impossible to do so. But I mean, what are you kind of looking for when you're picking your team?
I look at it like a puzzle, and the puzzle has an ultimate, it's always the same picture, and the same picture is some kind of success. The thing is, each puzzle piece might be different. And so each puzzle piece might have a different spot on the puzzle itself and the picture itself. The whole point is it's my job to make sure that those puzzle pieces go into the right spot to create that picture that we're trying to do. And I realize that's a really an absurd way of saying it.
A very Phil Jackson answer, Coach.
Yeah. The thing is you should. I got the sage burning in the back behind me.
You got the beard. I mean, you're basically halfway there. So
yeah, exactly. Very Zen mentality going on over here. But in reality, it's one of those things that we coach high school basketball and we play high school basketball. You play the hand that you're dealt. You don't get to pick what's going on. At least you're not supposed to. So you have to find a way to be as flexible as possible. And so that's why I'm not hey, Milap was 15-6 last year for us and averaged 4.5 rebounds. The problem is I don't need, let's say, Logan Jex to be Milap Owens. I need Logan Jex to be Logan Jex. And if we need to replace 15 points, Logan Jex might give us 15, he might give us 18, might give us 8. Doesn't matter. We need to figure out who's going to replace that 15 points collectively as a team, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, it definitely does.
And so it's one of those things that we as a coaching staff, we spend a lot of time on. It goes back to that chemistry, that culture thing too, and it goes back to the whole minutes thing that we talked about. And it's like, what kid's going to be good in his role? Who's going to shine in their role? Who's going to be okay waving a towel for 30 minutes and playing 2, or not playing at all, or playing JV, playing varsity, swinging back and forth, or whatever the situation is. And it changes every year. So it's with my ADD, that's the fun of it, I think. So, but it's also not the easiest thing in the world.
No, very much so. But like you said, just kind of fitting the puzzle pieces to fit that bigger picture, which is the Prescott boys basketball program. And we are speaking with Prescott High School's boys basketball coach, Travis Stedman. Coach, I got 2 more questions for you before we leave. The first of which is, do you have any goals for yourself this season?
Yeah, goals for myself is stay healthy. During the season's a grind. And so I have 2 main goals every year. It's take care of myself and take care of my family. Cause when you're coaching, it can consume you. And, when you really love doing it, it's, as I do, you have to prioritize things. And my big thing is just staying present and making sure that my family gets what they need and my body gets what it needs. So, working out, eating right, making sure that communicate with the wife and the kids, and make sure I'm going to my son's basketball games and baseball games, my daughter's soccer games, and all that stuff. So,
yes. I'm going to start calling you the Zen Master, Coach, because we're getting a lot of Phil Jackson here from you. It's starting to scare me.
The funny thing about Phil Jackson is, and this is not a pro to anything, but it's he grew up probably 20 minutes from me. I was born in the same town as him. He and I have nothing in common. I know we're joking.
The beard, I'm telling you.
Other than the beard, and other than the fact that as a high school player, I played in the Phil Jackson field house where he went to high school. So
very cool. Well, hey, the connection's there nonetheless, Coach. I try to connect myself with a lot of my idols as well, like Vince Scully and Mike Breen. But Sure. It never really adds up. It's hard when you're from a small town in California. But Coach, before we let you go, obviously I mentioned the Badgers have their first game against Notre Dame Prep on November 23rd. The Saints themselves finished 2020 with a 9-7 record. They also made the playoffs, just like the Badgers did too. Coach, what are you expecting from the Saints, and how are you preparing your team for that one again on November 23rd?
Well, I'm expecting to play a team that's probably going to make the Final Four or a state championship game this year. Notre Dame Prep is loaded, loaded, legit loaded. They just had a freshman get an offer from Oregon a couple days ago.
Wow.
They have a sophomore on the team who I've never seen a high school kid look like him. He's one of the best looking athletes I've ever. They're loaded, and on top of that, well coached by a really good guy. And so I'm expecting us a good battle against a good basketball team, and it'll be fun. It'll be really fun.
Again, that is Prescott High School boys basketball coach Travis Stedman. Coach Stedman, it is always great to speak with you. Best of luck on the season this year. I know we'll be talking again about mid-year, but best of luck from me to you.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate it. And good luck to you as well. Look forward to seeing you.
Yes, sir. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Mingus Union boys basketball coach Dave Beery right here on Off the Bench. Stay with us.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Gettles High Desert Mechanical. I'm joined now by Mingus Union High School boys basketball coach Dave Beery. Coach Beery, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Phil.
We're very much happy to have you. Got a chance to speak with you during the halftime show of one of the Mingus Marauder football broadcasts, and we got kind of an idea how the offseason was going. But here, I'd like to dive again more into it. We've gotten tryouts underway. The season's coming up real soon. First game is on November 26th. So, Coach, I thought we'd kind of start off with how the offseason's been going. How has it been going? How many new kids are welcomed in? How many returners are you looking at right now? Just how things been going in the offseason.
Yeah, we've got a pretty solid group coming back at the varsity level. Most of those kids played last year. I have a few that weren't able to complete a full season last year for different reasons, injuries and other stuff. And got a few football guys that didn't play last year that have been coming to practices and doing a great job. So I'm real excited about our group right now.
Yeah, very nice. Coach, how was just kind of the environment at tryouts? I mean, what's just kind of the feel of the team right now?
Yeah, a lot of it's, kind of just resetting some things that, letting them know what my expectations are, what my practices are like, and kind of season mode versus off season mode. I a lot more intense, I think, during the season than I have been in the off season. So just making little adjustments, for them mostly on, hey, this is the way good teams practice. This is the way good teams do things. And if your goal is to be a good team, this is what we need to change. So
now, of course, for those who are unfamiliar with the Mingus program, Coach Beery was the head coach of the team. He stepped away after the 2018-2019 season. Coach Albert Rodriguez had been coaching the program for the past two seasons. He is now out. Coach Beery is back in. Coach, was it always kind of the plan to come back and return to this program when you were given the opportunity again?
Not necessarily. I do think, I have a love for the sport, so it's not something I completely pushed out. But, when I did step away, there were good reasons, and there were some things that, I needed to kind of fix with my own life. And so the timing felt right. I'm excited to be back where I am and looking forward to moving forward.
How does it feel to be back coaching again? I mean, to step back out on that hardwood and be yelling and getting into that mode and getting into that regular season mode again.
Yeah, it's great. It's been a lot of time. I'm helping out the girls program as well as the boys right now. So we kind of jokingly say that my second shift starts when school ends, but it's been fun. That's one of my favorite places to be. So I'm happy to be on the court.
Talking about that, Coach, you just mentioned it. Of course, you do get an opportunity to help out with the girls program as well. Your daughter is a freshman at Mingus this year. Is basketball kind of a generational thing for your family? I know you played. Did your father play? Where did kind of that love for the sport come from?
Yeah, my grandfather played college basketball in Iowa,
Wow.
way back in 40s or 50s. And to be honest, my dad, he wasn't one of those youth sports dads. He kind of wanted us to figure out what we wanted to do on our own. And for my brother and I growing up and my sister, it was basketball that we latched onto pretty early and pretty strongly. All of us played competitively in high school. My brother went on and had a good college career. And so it's something that we talk about when we're together. It's something that we watch and enjoy, and definitely a love for the game is kind of shared throughout my family.
Kind of going back, looking at the returners you're getting this season, as we touch back at the start of the season again, we're speaking with Mingus Union High School boys basketball coach Dave Beery. Coach, you're looking at right now returning a good group of seniors and a few obviously sophomores and juniors and whatnot. But Dante Gabaldon, your leading scorer, comes back this season for his senior year. You're also looking at potentially returning Freddie Jimenez, another football guy who's waiting to come back. Brazen Dirkolek, who's right now nursing an injury but should be coming back to the start of the season. How do you continue to develop this group now that you're inheriting them from Coach Rodriguez? And like you said, you're kind of establishing sort of what you're setting those goals, you're setting those expectations. But how do you plan to develop these players now that you're stepping back into the program?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a mix, and I've got a really good group of seniors that have been very receptive to my philosophy and really bought in to what I want to do, which is great right now. And, I'm telling them, things will get tough. And when things are tough, that's when you find out how much you've really bought in. And right now they're doing the right things. They're saying the right things. We've got a talented group of sophomores that they're helping bring along. And I've had really good leadership out of Freddie and Dante and also Antonio Davila, who's a senior this year. That's one of our captains as well.
Let's talk a little more about that coaching philosophy, Coach. What is yours a little bit more specifically?
Yeah, I mean, it's big picture stuff. I want you to learn how to play basketball, not how to run a play. That's what I find myself telling kids a lot is, you're reading a situation and adapting, because that's what good players do. And that's what good teams do. And if they learn to do that on their own, then I've got a lot of minds working together. It's not just me yelling out a play and hoping they understand why we're executing it. So my goal is for them to take more ownership and more leadership and make decisions that are going to help them and help put the goals of the team above their individual goals.
Let's go into those goals of the team right now, Coach. I mean, what goals do you have for this program going forward? And I mean, for the season and going forward in general? I mean, you're back coaching the program. So what are your expectations? What are your goals for this season? And again, going forward with the program now that you're back?
Yeah, I mean, we have high expectations. I like to win. I'm greedy. That's what I tell the kids. And if they want to win, it's hard. It's a decision. If it was easy, everybody would do it. So you've got to make decisions that are going to set yourself up for success. And right now I've gotten pretty good buy-in that, hey, these kids want to be good. And I think we have a lot more potential than maybe I thought even a few months ago. I've been real impressed in practice by our top really 9 or 10 guys. And so it's really been we've had some really good practices over the last week, and I'm real excited right now.
Coach, is there any sort of other coach, whether it be at the high school level or all the way up to the professionals, that you kind of look to and go, this is the kind of coach I like to model myself after? Is there any kind of maybe program that you look to as well for inspiration? Anybody just that's around that you kind of go, that's who I want my program to look like?
There's so many. That's a tough question. There's a lot of great coaches out there in different philosophies, and there's little things I try to steal from different people. The consistency, the moral, the morals and ethics of John Wooden are so impressive, and everything that guy writes down is impressive. I'm a Duke basketball fan. Obviously, they've got a pretty good coach and have for a while. And going back to high school, I'm telling kids, the people that influence me, two men that coached me, up in Montana, a guy named Bobby Oren and Bruce Robertson, my varsity coach. And those guys were consistent. They stuck to their principles. If they said something, they were going to do it. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. When I played for them, sometimes I hated their guts, but as I've grown, they've made me the man I am today. They had a huge impact on my life, and a lot of my coaching philosophy has been shaped around, if I say something to the kids, I need to back it up if I expect them to respect me.
I had a phenomenal high school coach as well for me with basketball, and Aaron Wiltrout, when I was going to Shadow Hills High School. And he's another one who really kind of pushed on the philosophy of Coach John Wooden and Coach Krzyzewski over at Duke. So, yeah, I mean, those kind of influences really are generational. I mean, you look at Coach Wooden, Coach Beery, and while he hasn't been a part of the game for a very long time since that he passed away several years ago, his impact is really felt throughout the entire country and probably even internationally as well. I mean, he really is the gold standard when it comes to coaching basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way he's able to be so positive and that's something I need to work on sometimes. I tell kids it's really easy to point out what you're doing wrong. And that's kind of my first instinct, but you're doing a lot of things right. Don't hesitate to ask me. I'll tell you what you're doing right too. Sometimes I don't point it out as much as I need to. So that's something I'm working on becoming better at. So yeah, consistency, you look at programs, look at the San Antonio Spurs, and the teams that are good year in and year out, there's reasons.
Again, we were speaking with Mingus Union High School boys basketball coach Dave Beery. The Marauders get their season kicked off on November 26th. Coach Beery returning back from stepping away from the program. He's now taking back over this program here. Coach, you kind of mentioned it early on. You got a nice little core of sophomore that you're trying to keep down at the JV level. Let's talk about the lower levels right now. How are they looking?
Yeah, our JV team, I practiced our JV and our varsity together. And so they're going to learn all the stuff that the varsity kids are doing. And I expect them to challenge the varsity kids in practice, day in and day out. A large sophomore group. We got, 2 or 3 that are ready to contribute at the varsity level, and some younger guys that, again, part of their job is to push the older guys and to make them better players every day in practice. And they've done a good job of buying into that role.
You have any standouts down at the JV level, Coach, that you're excited to see participate at the JV and then possibly make their way up to varsity here next season or the season after?
Yeah. I think looking at sophomores, some of them are probably already locks on the varsity level. David Rodriguez and Isaiah Lathan especially stand out. Mario Camacho is a phenomenal athlete. He's got an injury right now, but he's somebody that we're real excited for as well. And then kind of, going down that list, we've got 3 or 4 juniors that are really working their butt off on JV. And as far as sophomores go, I don't know if there's anybody I want to name drop at this point, but there's some guys that are going to push. And I know the way Coach Figge likes to coach, they're going to be held accountable and they're going to improve a lot as players.
Coach, how are you attracting more players out to this program? You talk about a couple names you threw out there, Isaiah Latham, you got Mario Camacho, football guys, Freddie Jimenez, another football guy, Brazen Dirk Lake. You got a lot of crossover between multiple programs here, but how are you attracting more kids out to come play basketball for you?
Well, a couple of things. I try to make it fun, Kids got to want to be there. And for me, keeping drills competitive, and kind of balancing competitive versus, non-competitive, more teaching drills so that there's reasons they want to be in the gym. And it's hard. There's so many demands on high schoolers' time, in this day and age. It's sometimes tricky. You're competing against jobs and school and other sports and, girlfriends and social media and all this stuff. So trying to find reasons that they'll want to be in the gym is really the biggest incentive for me.
Again, the Marauders take on ALA Queen Creek on November 26th. That is their first game of the season. It starts off with a tournament. They'll be at the Valley Christian Boys Basketball Thanksgiving Tournament on the 26th, taking on ALA Queen Creek. Let me strike that. Coach, what are you expecting from the Patriots in that one?
We're really looking at that tournament to focus on ourselves and kind of who we want to be, what's our identity as a team. That's something that I don't think the kids totally know yet. And it's something they have to determine, I can try and guide it, but it's ultimately up to them. In the past, when I've competed against Queen Creek, they've had solid teams. They've typically had some pretty talented big guys.
Mm-hmm.
But we're really going to that tournament with, I don't care if we go 0-6 or 6-0. We want to improve as a team and figure out who we are and really look to improve. And when the games that count towards us getting to the playoffs come around, we want to be ready for those. And so that's kind of my tournament philosophy.
Are there any other teams in that tournament that you're excited to face, or just kind of a look at? I know ALA Queen Creek is not in the region, but they could be a team you face in the playoffs. Is there anyone else that you're kind of keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, there's several 4A schools in there, so obviously, we'll be watching them a little bit closer, or Division 4 schools. And a couple of our region opponents, no matter where we go for a tournament, at least we're not like playing Bradshaw in the first round or something.
Right.
But some of our competition, I believe Bradshaw's in that tournament, and so we'll definitely be watching their games. Obviously, trying to prepare for what should be a pretty tough region.
Well, let's talk about that region, Coach. I mean, obviously you stepped away, but you've been keeping a close eye not only on your team, but the teams that they're going to be facing in that 4A Grand Canyon region. What can you say to the talent that you've seen developing now since you've stepped away? Who are you excited to take on? And are there any other out-of-region teams that you're looking forward to playing this season?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of talent right now. Obviously Coconino did tremendously well, and Coach Moran does a phenomenal job with them. They're going to be tough again. And you look at Prescott and Jason Parent, some of the top end talent they have, and some really, young players that could really impact their varsity team already. So, I don't think there's any team you can sleep on in the region. I feel like I'm disrespecting the teams I'm not mentioning, but it's going to be competitive, but I feel like we can compete with anybody there. Looking at the rest of our schedule, Deer Valley, Buckeye Union, there's a lot of teams that have traditionally been pretty strong, talented basketball teams. For our kids, it's nice to sometimes see the athleticism from the teams in the Valley that you don't always see in the Northern Arizona teams. That really kind of helps us become better, learning how to play different styles and learning how to play against teams that might have more talent and warm-ups than we do. But you got to play between the whistles. So.
A very talented region coming up here in the 2021-2022 basketball season. The Marauders have their first game on November 26th, taking on ALA Queen Creek. Coach Dave Beery, the head coach of Mingus Union High School boys basketball, thank you very much for coming on the show, sir, to talk about your program. We're excited to get the season started.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun. Come check us out. I think we'll put a good product on the court, and I'm excited for the year.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Basis Flagstaff boys soccer coach Marty Heilman right here on Off the Bench. Stay with us.
Starting in the late 1920s, Grandpa Gettle and his brothers laid the groundwork for what would become a family legacy. Almost 100 years and 100 patents later, Gettle's High Desert Mechanical continues to raise the bar of quality heating, cooling, and plumbing products and services in the Verde Valley.
Call Gettle's High Desert Mechanical Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing at 567-2200 or online at GettlesHDM.com, providing solutions for your comfort. Don't settle. Get Gettles.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in Northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Gettle's High Desert Mechanical and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I am joined now by a familiar face to the program. He is Basis Flagstaff boys soccer coach Marty Heilman. Coach Heilman, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for having me.
We had a chance to speak with Coach Heilman, I believe last month. We talked a little bit about how he sort of makes his physical education classes a lot more fun than what you're used to. He puts on the character Marty Moose, which is essentially Coach Heilman wearing a wonderful moose antler hat that is fabric. And we talked about that. We also talked with his assistant coach. But I wanted to bring him back on and talk about the end of the season. The Basis Flagstaff boys soccer season has wrapped up. The 2A soccer season has wrapped up. The Yetis finished this 2021 soccer season with a 6-1 record. Coach Heilman, how did you feel the season went?
It went fantastic. I thought our players really stepped up and they did a great job. And they were a lot of fun to coach. And so I'm really proud of our players and our students. I really am.
Any players stand out for you? Anybody you want to name drop? Anybody who really, really performed well for you guys?
Well, we had co-coach Charlie. Charlie's a senior who pretty much started the team and did most of the coaching on the field. Mm-hmm. So it was very much a student-led team and led by Charlie and another guy named Brian Hofstetter, who I believe was Defensive Player of the Year and much deserved. He is another senior, and both of them really showed a lot of leadership and did a fantastic job coaching their peers. And I kind of, to be honest, me and, the other coach, Brendan Personale, we kind of just let them do their thing, and we kind of went along for the ride, and it was a lot of fun. And they ended up 6-1, and they had just a great season.
Well, and that's great experience, Coach. Obviously you talk about those two students who really kind of helped lead the charge on the field. Obviously you and Coach Personale are there to, steer the ship. And you've got a couple of those guys down there who, while you guys are in the midst of battle, are able to, really kind of make sure the game plan goes forward, help out any students or players who might be a little lost or what's going on. But having that extension of you and Coach Personale on the court, on the field, had to have been, it's got to be one of the reasons why you guys were so successful this season.
Oh, absolutely. And I also recruited my roommate, Sean, as well, who was there every step of the way, volunteering his time because he just loves soccer. Yeah. So the three of us really, gelled as a team to be able to coach our players. And again, for us, it was kind of coaching coaches because Brian and Charlie, we're definitely coaches on the field. But since we are a small school, we had to recruit other players from the basketball team, from the cross-country team, from even the classroom. So we had students on the team who got a lot of playing time who never played soccer before.
Well, and that's great too. I mean, obviously the idea is that you'll be welcoming back a few of these guys from the team. Yes. And now you've incorporated some kids who haven't necessarily played soccer before or haven't played soccer a whole lot. And now they're potentially getting back in the mix. So you've just added more players to the potential roster next season. So you got to be feeling good about the numbers that are, at least in terms of, in theory, that could be there next season.
Absolutely. And we have a strong middle school program as well. We actually won the championship here in Flagstaff.
Wow.
So that's going to be a good feeder program coming into the high school program.
Right.
And we do have some strong soccer players coming back. Brian's brother, Evan Hofstetter. There's our female players, Kaylin Elliott and Emily Mullaney are coming back, and they're going to be strong. So really looking forward to next year and the younger grades coming up into the high school program. Really looking forward to that because once again, they are really great kids. And Philip, I got, it's not just, it's being part of a team. And, this is a strong academic school. So they're really there for academics. And for them, it's like their chance to be part of a team and to feel what it's like to be part of a team. And I think the most fun that they had were the van rides back and forth to the games and the fast food restaurants, and just hanging out with the team. I really do. And then cheering from the sidelines with Coach Personality and Coach Sean and I. I think they got a lot out of that, which was for us, it made it worthwhile and gratifying.
Well, Coach, we both know that a lot of that team building is made and built when you guys are in the van on the way to the game, when you're in the van after the game, when you're at the fast food place, when you guys are convening after practice. I mean, genuinely, this is where, you build that team rapport. And what's great about it is then you run into a beautiful problem to have, which is other kids start talking about it and they go, oh, yes. Well, we got a great van. It's so much fun. The rides up there. Coach Heilman keeps everything so loose and it's so much fun. And there's we just have a great time. And it's just building more and more of that reputation for the program. You talked about it. The middle schools have a great feeder program coming into the high school. Obviously, you will be competing with Northland Prep Academy, with Coconino High School, with Flagstaff High School, any other schools that are up in that area, of course. But I mean, It seems like, Coach, you know, from the middle school to the high school program, you guys are really building something here that is really starting to catch fire and hopefully will result in a lot of those kids from the middle school program coming into your program when they make it up to the high school level.
Absolutely. And I think they're excited about it.
Yeah.
Because I am their PE teacher. So I see them, 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
So we talk about it a lot. And they ask me all about the high school team and the high school players and what it's like. And they're really looking forward to representing bases as a high school athlete. They really are.
Now, of course, the season is done for the Yetis. Like I mentioned, they finished the 2021 season 6-1. This is, again, Bases Flagstaff boys soccer coach Marty Heilman. Coach, we talked a little bit before we got the interview going. I was asking you what the plan for the offseason was, but like you had discussed, you're sharing a lot of your players with other programs. So in a lot of ways, you're kind of now taking that step back and going, okay, you can have this kid for basketball. This kid goes back to doing cross country. This kid maybe just doesn't participate in sports. But I want to ask a little bit about sort of not necessarily the difficulty, because I don't want to put a negative spin on it, but I want to know how you navigate sort of having to share kids within other programs because Basis is a smaller school.
It's a pretty tricky situation sometimes. And for us, I really want to go into it with as much really ease and grace as I possibly can.
Right.
Again, I am also the high schoolers PE teacher. And that is 5 days a week for most of those kids at 7:30 in the morning. Mm-hmm. So there are times when they are at soccer from maybe 4 to 6 or 4 to 5:30, and then they're off to basketball practice that very night from 6 to 8.
Right.
And then they're going to have to come home and do some homework. Yeah. And so then for me, I see them at 7:30 in the morning, and I can see that they might need a little break, or they might need a little time to study, and I grant them that. But then I will also make sure that I come back around to making my class fun too for them.
Of course.
So that we release as much stress and anxiety as possible so they can go on with their day. But we are actually sharing at the same time. So, we had like Emily Mullaney, for instance, is a fantastic cross-country runner. And so she actually had a meet, I believe, in Prescott in the morning on a Saturday, and then again played a full soccer game on the boys team as a sophomore and later that night. And so it's just being able to share the students is important because we need to have the numbers until we can build the program up until maybe we don't need to share. But to be honest with you, Philip, I kind of like the sharing of the students. I kind of like that our basketball player was our striker for our soccer team. Yeah. And first time he ever played. And it was just so fun to see him out there doing his best and trying something new.
Well, and what's great too about you sharing kids within other programs is you now build a rapport with other coaches. So, you're now becoming friends with other coaches because they know, okay, well, if Marty's got this one student for soccer season and I need him for basketball practice later that night, I know there's not going to be any problems because like you just said, you've been very flexible, making sure that, okay, if you do have a player who needs to go to cross-country practice after soccer practice, that you grant them that ability. Or if they come in the morning for their PE class or for one of your practices and they go, hey, coach, I just need to finish this one thing. Can I just finish it real quick? Of course. It's just being flexible because while we love these kids participating in sports, genuinely, we all love it. Academics are what gets these kids what gets most of these kids into the colleges, into a community college, into a vocational school, into wherever they want to go. It's the academics that are the important thing. And I know that you don't want to be a distraction outside of the academics because we both know Basis Flagstaff is all about the grades.
Yes. They have a full AP load for high school students. And there is a lot of pressure on them academically, and they are, going to go on to a 4-year school probably in academics. That is their main goal. And so for us, again, sports is something that really needs to be fun, really needs to be something that they kind of the memories that they cherish, and it teaches them to be strong leaders and to use a leadership voice. And to be able to lead others, and I really want to to be an example of that, you know, and each student, we lead a little bit differently. You know, there's students, especially, you know, here at Basis that they really haven't been coached before. So if you come at them with any type of, I don't know, intensity, maybe, you know, they can really start to back down from that. So when you come at them at a place where it is kind of ease and grace, where it is being flexible, where it is being, thank you for being here, and I'm grateful for you being here, you know, then they open up and they really start to blossom, and you can see their personality. And I love to see that. I love to see them coming out and, you know, and coming out of the stands and onto the court. And I mean that more than just a game, right? In life, coming out of the stands and onto the court and to be part of society, to be a contributor, because they have a lot to offer. They really do. So that's kind of what my purpose is over at Basis right now.
Again, we are speaking with Basis Flagstaff boys soccer coach Marty Heilman. You know, Coach, we didn't get a chance to speak too much about your origins in coaching and education in general. I know you're very passionate about physical education. You're very passionate about, like you just said, making these kids very positive influences in their community and being great contributors to their society. You just said it. But I want to know, let's start with your origin. We got a couple minutes before we wrap up the show here, but I want to know, Coach, how did you get started in physical education? What inspired this career choice?
Well, I grew up the youngest of 5 boys in Chicago. My dad started the soccer programs. He was the soccer coach. So, you know, athletics, soccer especially, was always a big part of our life. And then after I wasn't the best student in high school, I went to a junior college and played a lot of soccer, didn't take a lot of classes. And then I kind of floated around in fitness for a while. And it wasn't until I was 26 years old that I decided that I want to go back, because I was doing some youth coaching. And so I moved from Chicago to Arizona in 92 and started to go to Northern Arizona University, 26 years old. Academics was still kind of hard for me. I have to be honest with you. I even had some counselors along the way that said maybe college isn't the best for you. So my confidence wasn't high in the classroom, especially when it came to your core classes, you know, math, English. I really struggled with that. But I learned that I had a passion for the human body. I had a passion for the kinesiology, the way the human body works and the way the body functions, because I was already in fitness. And then I felt like I had a gift to be able to coach kids and adolescents and make it fun and make it enjoyable for them. So it was really, I was getting all A's in kinesiology, but struggling in math 101. And I'm not even kidding about that. And so I made it through. So that gives me the ability to reach out to a kid, to be like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You know, that I've been there. I've made it through. You can too. And, you know, and for a lot of these kids, that's just what they need, especially right now. They just need really just maybe a kind word, maybe somebody to influence them in a positive way. And, you know, and to listen to them and to give them a chance to speak and to be heard. And maybe they don't even really have to use their words. You can kind of see in their expression. I went up to a high school kid, a high school student, just maybe last week, and we were doing fitness, and, you know, he looked sad. And I was like, hey, you all right? You're okay? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, it's going to be okay, man. Here, take this medicine ball and slam it. And I slammed it with them. It was, you know, bam, it felt good. Does that feel good? That feels good, right? And that was it. And then the next day, the office calls and says, hey, coach, there's something here for you. And it was 2 pair of crazy socks, because I love my crazy socks. Because I like to be awkward. And with a kind note from the mom saying, thank you for caring about my son.
Very nice.
And it didn't take much, Philip. It did not take much, you know, just to be able to read your student, to read the ones that you are leading, and to give them a little bit of compassion and a little bit of empathy and a kind word. and they need that right now. So to really, I go back to coaching coaches because this is my 24th year, and that's kind of how I feel right about now. And a lot of my students, a lot of my co-coaches, some of my, even coach personalities, I've been coaching for as long as he's been alive. And so, I really want to share my experience, what I've been through, what worked and what didn't work. That's important to me too, because I had a lot of things that didn't work, and I learned from that. And so all of my experiences just comes back around to make me a better coach and a better leader. And so I encourage anyone who's coaching, teaching, to just take the time to listen to your students right now. They've been through a lot. And just, even if they don't speak the words, maybe take the time to listen, to see their body language, to see if if they just need a little, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
An attaboy or an attagirl, man, you're doing a great job. Keep it up.
Yeah.
Just stay positive, keep your head up, and everything's going to be okay.
Well, I think that's such a great attitude, Coach, to have, not only with coaching, but just in life. You make a great point. These kids have gone through a lot. Last year was a nightmare in terms of how COVID ruined some senior years. The year before, it ruined some senior years. I mean, a lot of people are probably coming into this school year with a lot of question marks. What's the school year going to look like? How are sports going to operate? And it's people like you and a lot of people, everybody I've spoken to on this show, who have the same passion, who have the same drive to not only coach a successful program, because wins do matter, but also coaching successful kids. And I don't mean kids, who are winning state championships every year. I mean exactly what you're talking about, which is listening, which is recognizing when there's a player who needs a little bit of assistance, when there's a student in your PE classes, like you just said in your story, who was maybe not having the best day and kind of needed somebody to just go, why don't you just throw this real quick? And it makes them feel a lot better. I mean, it's inspiring to see, I'm in a career field that I love. I'm doing something that I love. And it's always wonderful to see somebody who is in a similar place as well, who is doing something they love. They have found, no matter how long it took for you to find that. But I mean, it's very inspiring to see a fellow person just following their passions. And Coach, I do apologize because now we're out of time, but
no worries.
I want to thank you very much for coming on the show, Marty. It's always great speaking with you. Genuinely, if you have not heard about the Marty Moose story, please go back and watch our previous episode with Coach Heilman and Coach Personale, because it's wonderful. What this gentleman is doing up in Bases Flagstaff is quite incredible. And I'm honored to get a chance to get to know you a little better, Coach. And thank you again for coming on the show.
And Philip, again, it's living my purpose. We get to live our purpose. I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
I really appreciate you, Coach. And that's going to do it for this episode of the show. I want to thank Mingus Union boys basketball coach Dave Beery for stopping by. Want to thank Prescott boys basketball coach Travis Stedman, the Zen master, for coming on as well. And of course, Marty Moose, Mr. Heilman, Coach Heilman, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you so much.
That's going to do it for this episode of Off the Bench. I'm Philip Catafamo, wishing you a great rest of your week. We'll see you next time.